room is dark, quiet, and still, the kind of silence that makes thoughts louder than they should be. A phone screen glows softly in the darkness, held just inches away from tired eyes. The banking app opens without much thought, driven by habit more than hope. There's a split second of hesitation, the familiar fear that nothing has changed. Then the number appears, clear and impossible to ignore. $20,000. For the first time, the savings balance starts with a 2 instead of a 1 or a 0. 4 zeros sit calmly behind it, steady and unmoving. The screen stays open longer than planned, eyes fixed on the number as if it might disappear. Something shifts internally, subtle but unmistakable. Shoulders straighten slightly, postureless without conscious effort. The mind begins to wander forward into a different version of life. A cleaner apartment comes to mind, one with space to breathe. A real vacation appears in imagination, not just time off spent sleeping on a childhood bed. There's even a thought of owning a car that doesn't sound like it's struggling to survive every morning. In that moment, 20,000 doesn't feel like a number. It feels like proof that the chaos might finally be slowing down, proof that the constant financial noise might ease just a little. But here's the part rarely mentioned out loud. The moment someone looks safe on paper, the world reacts. Banks begin to treat that person differently almost immediately. New card offers arrive, heavier, shinier, marketed as rewards. Credit limits quietly expand, stretching far beyond what once felt imaginable. Investment apps unlock tools that were hidden before, labeled advanced and professional. At the same time, social feeds begin telling a very specific story. People the same age appear to be upgrading everything all at once. New kitchens, premium flights, oversized bows tied to brand new cars. It creates a silent question that lingers in the background. If everyone else is doing this, shouldn't it be possible now too? Yet beneath all that noise, the broader reality looks very different. Recent surveys show a large share of adults can't handle a small emergency from savings alone. A $400 surprise would force borrowing, selling, or skipping bills entirely. That context changes everything. Reaching 20,000 already places someone ahead of millions of others. That's why the moment feels so powerful. It feels like crossing a finish line that once seemed unreachable. But the story doesn't end there. For many people, the year after hitting that number looks worse than expected. Savings shrink instead of growing. Not because of laziness, not because discipline vanished overnight, but because the rules quietly changed. The moment 20,000 appears, the game becomes different. Treating that number as the end creates a dangerous cycle. Balances rise with effort, then collapse after one expensive surprise. A car repair pulls the total down hard. Medical bills arrive without warning. Family emergencies demand help. Slowly, the balance drifts back toward where it started. This pattern can repeat for years without anyone understanding why. The mistake isn't saving. The mistake is believing the story ends at 20,000. When that number is treated as level 1 instead of the finale, everything changes. A mental line gets drawn that isn't meant to be crossed again. That line becomes protection, not decoration. Money above it gains a new purpose. It buys time instead of toys. It creates options instead of pressure. It quietly builds space to breathe. Once living paycheck to paycheck finally ends, advice starts pouring in from everywhere. The message sounds simple and comforting. Just reach 20,000 and let compounding do the rest. That statement is only half true. The other half is where most people stumble. Getting to 20,000 is phase 1. What follows is phase 2. Phase 2 determines whether progress compounds or disappears. This is where systems, habits, and pressure collide. This is where money either starts working quietly or slowly slips away without drama. Understanding this shift is the difference between stability and relapse, because escaping chaos is only the first step. Staying out of it requires new rules entirely. Phase 1 is where money always feels personal and heavy at the same time. This is the stage where every small win feels fragile. Cutting expenses feels like constant sacrifice instead of strategy. Selling unused items brings short relief, not lasting security. Side gigs add income, but they also add exhaustion. Savings slowly climb from 200 to 2,000. Then they reach 5,000, 7,000, maybe more. That's usually when life interrupts without warning. A car breaks down at the worst possible moment. A medical issue appears out of nowhere. Rent increases arrive dressed up as routine emails. The balance drops fast, undoing months of effort. It starts to feel like savings are cursed. Every time progress shows up, something reaches in and takes it away. That feeling convinces many people they are bad with money. The truth is far less personal. The broader system is designed around low savings. Most households save only a small fraction of what they earn. That leaves almost no buffer for real-life surprises. Stress becomes the default state instead of the exception. So when savings finally reach 10 or 15,000, it feels monumental. At 20,000, it feels unreal. The mind interprets the number as safety. A sense of arrival quietly settles in, but safety without structure is temporary. That's where phase 2 quietly begins. The brain shifts out of survival mode for the first time in years. Bills stop triggering panic responses. Unexpected expenses feel annoying instead of catastrophic. At the same time, external forces begin applying pressure. Banks flag the account as stable and profitable. Marketing becomes more aggressive and more flattering. Credit offers arrive, framed as congratulations. Higher limits are presented as trust, not risk. Loan products suddenly feel accessible. Investment platforms unlock features that promise faster results. At the same time, comparison pressure intensifies. Peers appear to be leveling up all at once. Social media quietly sets a new baseline for normal. Living modestly starts to feel unnecessary. After all, the balance looks solid now. This is where the hidden tax shows up, not as a bill, but as temptation. Money systems don't drain empty accounts. They drain accounts that look safe. Long contracts replace short discomfort. Small monthly payments hide large long-term costs. Each decision feels justified on its own. Together, they quietly shrink flexibility. Meanwhile, compounding begins working, but slowly. Growth finally contributes instead of deposits doing all the work. Returns become noticeable, not life-changing. This stage requires restraint more than excitement. Excitement is exactly what the environment pushes. Spending feels like a reward for past suffering. That urge is human and understandable, but without clear boundaries, rewards turn into regression. Dipping into savings becomes easier each time. The balance no longer feels sacred. Progress stalls without any obvious mistake. This is where many people feel stuck again. Not broke, but not free either. Stress returns in a new form. Instead of survival fear, it becomes fear of failure, fear of wasting the chance to finally move ahead. That fear creates hesitation instead of clarity. The system counts on that confusion. Because confused money is easy money, phase 2 isn't about earning more, it's about protecting what already exists. Without new rules, progress leaks out silently. This is where most people unknowingly stall for years, not because they failed, but because no one explained what comes next. After the first major milestone, a new and quieter trap appears. It doesn't feel dangerous because it doesn't arrive suddenly. It shows up slowly, disguised as growth and maturity. This is the identity shift that follows early financial success. Months of discipline start rewriting self-image. Someone who once struggled now feels responsible and capable. That confidence feels earned, and because it feels earned, it invites relaxation. Small upgrades begin to feel justified. Clothes get nicer. Dinners get better. Price checks happen less often. Subscriptions quietly return. None of these decisions feel reckless. That's exactly why they're dangerous. Fixed costs start drifting upward without ceremony. Housing improves just a little. Transportation becomes more expensive but more comfortable. Monthly obligations inch closer to income again. Savings stop growing even though income hasn't changed. The buffer now carries all the weight. Stress returns, disguised as responsibility. At the same time, financial institutions respond aggressively. Banks reward stability with offers. Premium cards appear with polished language and annual fees. Personal loans are framed as tools, not liabilities. Higher credit limits are positioned as freedom. Auto financing becomes easier and more tempting. Monthly payments replace upfront costs. Large commitments feel manageable when broken into pieces. But those pieces quietly lock in years of obligation. New vehicles lose value faster than they gain utility. Thousands leave savings and never return. Credit cards add another layer of pressure. Interest compounds in the wrong direction. Balances linger longer than planned. Minimum payments create the illusion of control. Meanwhile, investment platforms add their own friction. Featured funds promise expertise and performance. Higher fees quietly skim returns year after year. The difference feels invisible at first. Over time, it compounds into lost opportunity. None of this feels dramatic in the moment. It feels like adulthood. That's how progress gets taxed without resistance. The real danger isn't one bad decision. It's dozens of reasonable ones stacked together. This is where many people stall permanently. They earn more, but keep less freedom. Money increases, but options don't. The solution isn't deprivation, it's structure. Money works best when it's layered. The first layer is the floor. This is money that does not get touched casually. It covers rent, food, and essentials for months. The exact amount depends on real expenses. But 3 to 6 months isn't arbitrary. Research consistently ties that buffer to lower stress. Above the floor sits the growth layer. This money has one job: long-term freedom. It works quietly through simple strategies. No daily checking required. Above that sits the options layer. This is where enjoyment belongs. Trips, upgrades, learning, and career pivots. Enjoyment becomes sustainable when it stays out of the floor. The rule is simple but powerful. The floor protects the future. The upper layers shape the present. Breaking that rule resets progress fast. Following it quietly compounds freedom. This structure removes guilt from spending. It also removes fear from saving. Money stops feeling fragile. It starts feeling intentional, and that shift changes everything that comes next. The final trap doesn't look like fear. It looks like opportunity. Screens fill with success stories and fast wins. Every scroll suggests someone is moving faster. This is where patience gets tested the hardest, because waiting suddenly feels like losing. Markets promise shortcuts dressed as strategy. Speculation is framed as intelligence. Risk is marketed as courage. Missing out becomes emotionally painful. That pain pushes decisions before understanding. Money moves faster than thinking. Volatility feels exciting at first. Small wins reinforce dangerous habits. Losses get rationalized as learning, but learning without structure becomes gambling. This cycle drains energy as much as money. Sleep suffers. Focus fractures. Emotions begin driving financial behavior. That's the moment discipline quietly exits. The difference between investing and speculation is time. One respects it. The other tries to defeat it. Time always wins. Real wealth is built in silence. It grows when attention fades elsewhere. It rewards consistency, not excitement. The loudest strategies rarely last. The quiet ones change lives. This creates two very different futures. One path stays reactive. Money comes in and leaks out. Every gain demands constant attention. Freedom feels close but never arrives. The other path looks boring at first. Progress feels slow and uneventful. But decisions compound quietly. Options begin appearing naturally. Work becomes a choice, not a trap. Time stops being traded purely for money. Stress loses its grip. Sleep improves. Focus sharpens. This isn't luck. It's alignment. Money stops being the goal. It becomes a tool to buy time, a tool to reduce pressure, a tool to protect choices. That's the real finish line. Not wealth that impresses, but wealth that supports life, quietly. The system doesn't reward this mindset loudly. It barely acknowledges it at all. That's why so few follow it. But those who do rarely go back. Because once money feels calm, everything else becomes clearer. This is not a warning. It's an invitation to slow down intentionally, to choose structure over noise, to let time work instead of fighting it. The cost isn't financial, it's emotional patience. But the reward is rare. A life where money no longer shouts. It simply supports and fades into the background, right where it belongs,